The August 2018 meeting of the Southampton Village Zoning Board of Appeals is now open. There will be a change in the agenda. Case number 3007, Spur, is going to be moved up to the top of the pending cases. And we have a request from the Meta Club to adjourn that until next month. I move we accept that request.
I move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You seconded, Dan. Kevin moved, you seconded?
Yeah.
Dan seconded.
Right. On 2887, 259 South Main Street, we have a request for a special wetlands extension. I move we accept that request.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Case number 2968, Southampton RE Partners LLC, 95 Down East. I move we accept that decision as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Case number 2996, Christopher and Jean Lynch, 58 Roscoe Drive. I move we accept that decision as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Would you like that decision?
Is there a copy of another decision?
It got denied.
Jim, Kevin, there's on this, I don't know the format, but Jim, if you could attend to the last page and fill in the vote.
Yeah. I'll do that.
You want to do that, Kevin?
Yeah, you have it there?
The original, if some document should say original.
Whichever one is in the file, yeah. You can do it, I'll do that.
I'll do it.
Yeah, just check it off and sign.
All right, that brings us down to the Spur. Case number 3007, 630 Hampton Road, for the applicant.
For the applicant, David Gilmartin Jr., Farrell Fitz, 50 Station Road, Watermill, New York. It's my understanding through my discussions with council that we are going to refer this application over to the planning board to commence and do the secret process. To that end, we have submitted a preliminary site plan to accomplish that. I have spoken to Kathy Eisman, who is the environmental consultant for the planning board. We do have a plan to move forward with that secret review. That being said, I'd just like to give you just a quick background on this so that you know it's about. We'd ask you to hold the application over to your October meeting so we can get a couple meetings in with the planning board and figure out where we're going. So this is an application to obtain the variances necessary to renovate and repurpose the old Glennon Buick Cadillac dealership, which is on the corner of Hampton Road and Flying Point Road. The property has a certificate of occupancy to operate a car sales and repair use. I have the only thing that the building department had on this was a copy of their card, and you'll see on it that it has the sales and service building, and it's issued to the Glennon family, and the tenant is the Southampton Buick Cadillac, and I'll hand up copies of the jacket. The actual certificate of occupancy, the document itself isn't available. This property is located in an HB zoning district and is bordered by the Flying Point Office Park on the east, to the south, Flying Point Road to the east, Hampton Road to the north, and a architect and construction office to the west. The applicant is looking to renovate and repurpose the property. We've applied for 3 uses, all of which have been deemed permissible under the zoning code. We have a letter from the building inspector indicating that. So we're looking for an office use, gym use, and a restaurant use. The office use will be used as a co-working And what that is basically a shared office space. So you rent space, it's not permanent within the building, and you share it with others. It's for people who don't need a full-time office, but also need the access to conference rooms and other support type things. The gym and restaurant will be open to the public, and our current plan looks for an approximate 5,000 square foot increase to the existing building. So the plan, as we have proposed it, needs 3 variances. One is a setback for the new extension on the rear of the building. The rear yard setback is required at 50, and this is at 37 feet, so we need that setback. We need a variance from the dimensional regulation limitation of 2-story buildings on a commercial property. That limitation is 3,500 square feet. The existing building exceeds that, and then with what we're adding, we need the variance there. And the final variance we need is an expansion of a non-conforming structure by 50%. There's a code limitation. We have to come here for any expansion of a non-conforming structure, and the limitation is up to 50 feet. And we are under that 50-foot expansion. I have one of the principals, Frank DeVito, here tonight. Again, we have to go to the planning board. We can answer any questions, but we'd ask you to put us over to your October meeting so we have a chance to move forward with the planning board.
I have a question.
Sure.
They show an open roof play deck on the second floor, and is that play deck part of the bar, part of the gym, part of the...
Just an open space.
That seemed like a fourth use. That's what, you know.
It's available only to, if you call the people that are renting the space members, and there's no use, there's no part of the office use or the restaurant or gym that will take place out there. It's just.
But there's access to it from...
There is. It's a gathering place, but it's not an additional use. It's accessory, say, to the office use. The restaurant use can't go out there for, because of the space limitations and the parking limitations.
What's the pool for?
That's also accessory to the office use.
Is it a pool that people go in, or is it a visual,
I think it's
visual attraction?
It's a pool that people go in. The pool.
Yes, it's a members only. Can I go to the microphone, please?
It's a members-only pool.
Members of the health spa, members of the rental?
Members of the office use or the health club.
In other words, people that rent space in there on a part-time basis,
Will have access, correct.
they'll be members, they'll be considered members.
But people that belong to the gym don't have to have a rental space. They can be, I could join the gym.
Correct.
And
It's
then I
open to
could
the
use the
public.
pool and the stuff outside?
You gotta
The pool,
identify yourself.
I'm sorry, Frank DeVito, 93 Powell Avenue. The pool and the play area is only for the members of the office, which you have to be a yearly member, not just a
Of the
monthly member.
office, all right.
The office space,
Not the gym.
not the gym. So the upstairs lounge, the pool, and the little play area, the ping pong area is for membership only, year-round members. It's a drive to get people back out of the city and working back out here.
So the bar, did you say the bar lounge is only for members?
The upstairs. The downstairs is a restaurant open to the public.
No, the bar restaurant's on the second floor, right?
Right.
It's a 50-seat restaurant.
I'm sorry, I had it backwards, yes.
I'm just trying to understand it, what's
So the
happening.
50-seat restaurant is on the second floor?
Correct.
And Mr.
On the
Gazowitz,
first
I had
floor,
that.
then, the office spaces,
And the gym.
and the gym's on the first floor.
The gym's on the first floor. We were trying to keep it an exclusive, just members club, but we don't generate enough to put the, the food in there, so they asked, could we open up part of it to a restaurant? Because we're also trying to incubate, not just office work, but, people in the food, people in different industries, so somebody can come out, incubate a restaurant pop-up idea, work, and then hopefully get out on Main Street again.
There is a separate eating space for the members that are part of the office that rent the office on the first floor, but the public restaurant's on the second floor.
Okay, so this is Spur Cafe Lounge and
Right, that's-
area?
The Spur is the entity that is leasing it, and then we'll be responsible for the office.
Now,
So
does the
that's
kitchen service both, the Spur Cafe and the
Yes,
second
that's
floor
correct.
restaurant?
Yes,
But the people coming in to use the restaurant don't ever mingle with the lounge people and I just figuring out the flow. You come in the main entrance, you either take there's an elevator, or you go through to the back, to the staircase to get up to the restaurant?
Correct.
But you walk through the public space for the people that rent the office space. They're not it's not like a separate entrance for the restaurant?
that's correct.
Well, there's also an exterior stair just to go up to the restaurant also.
What?
There's an exterior stair to also go up to the restaurant from the outside.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is zoned highway business, right?
Correct.
So the dealership that was there was not non-conforming, it was conforming.
Correct.
Now you got 3 uses.
Correct.
Are they conforming under the designation highway business?
Yes. And we have enough area on the lot, so you can have one use per 10,000 square feet, so we could have 6 uses. We have 3 currently proposed.
Even though they're all on the same lot, you have more than one use?
Correct. The highway business, you're entitled to 1 use per 10,000 square feet of lot area.
And you can
And
have
this
a
is-
restaurant where it's highway business.
Correct. If you look at Mr. Foster's letter,
Yeah, I just read it. It didn't detail all the uses of it. I could even said it, as time goes on, you may have to come back to it.
okay, we're happy to discuss it. I would direct your attention to the second paragraph, and Mr. Foster, in the second sentence, writes, "Note that restaurant use is a permitted use." And then he expressed concern about, bar, nightclub, tavern, and said you'd have to get special exception. We're not requesting that, we're just looking for the restaurant use.
The other thing that's a little confusing is I don't know, like if they could have labeled the entrances on here, because there's parking in the back, the front, and the side, but I don't know, this entrance is for the office space, this entrance is for the restaurant, this entrance is for the gym, this, so where people park and how they get into the building would be,
We can update.
We're actually working out a flow on how they enter and exit, so not everybody, no one's ever coming out by the light on Flying Point, so we're trying to direct the flow around where they can come out on Hampton Road, they can come out on the backside. So, and then we will designate the parking
If they come out on Hampton Road, will they be able to turn left?
on Hampton Road, yes,
If they come out on Flying Point Road, they gotta wait for that light to run.
correct.
And how far back will the exit be from the light?
It's,
That backs up sometimes. yeah.
Right, yeah, we're still working out the site plan details. Part of my discussion with the planning board's environmental consultant, Kathy Eisman, was preparing a flow and dealing with the traffic, so I think that will be the issue as we go through the secret process.
there were 3 existing road cuts. We're trying to utilize them, but not just keep them directional, not just in and out wherever.
I don't quite, I mean, there's no elevations or anything, you know, it's like there's an open roof play deck area, you know, next to a bar, you know, and it's like, but you're saying bar people and restaurant people aren't supposed to use that, but, you know, it's hard to tell how safe anything is, you know,
We'll have elevations, and obviously
the
we
gym
have
is
to
on the
meet
first
code.
floor, but the bathrooms are on the second floor for the gym, or?
Now we have, in the
Basement.
lower level is the bathrooms. We have bathrooms on the first floor, limited amount. The main bathrooms are on the lower level for the gym, for the
When you say the lower level, you mean the first floor?
Basement.
The basement,
So the bathrooms for the gym are in the basement?
correct.
But the gym is on the second floor,
On the first floor.
on first floor. Okay. We don't have to go down just one flight.
I see, okay. What's the dimension of that gym space? Is it, you know, doesn't seem like a very big gym.
I think it's not,
1322. 1,322.
What's the square footage?
Jim,
Square feet?
yes.
30 by
all set
40?
up for a specialty gym for mainly
30 by 40?
members.
About the size of
30 by
this
40,
room.
the gym?
It's not even 30 by 40. It's 20-something by maybe,
Size of this room.
it is about the size of this room. Do you have any elevations or renderings or anything in the folder?
I mean, I didn't, this is the newest package of the plans. I didn't look
We have
in
some
the-
beautiful renderings of this
A
building.
lot of stuff in the folder. It wasn't in our package.
Brought some poster boards and
No, we have a site plan and floor plans. We don't have any elevations or renderings.
This is a site plan. Did you go back for you getting new health department approval for this? You have that already?
No,
we're working on
working on it.
stormwater and wastewater is getting designed.
In the renovation now, are there buried like fuel tanks and stuff on this property? Is there anything that we're doing that's coming out? Is it gas heat? What is,
We had, all of that was abandoned and taken out before we took over. We have the environmental, phase one
That
and
was
phase two
done?
done on that, yes. We got a clean bill of health.
Been empty for a long time.
It wasn't empty, there was a lot of raccoons and feral cats. But,
It has been used for overflow from other
Across the street?
dealerships. Mercedes had it for a while,
Yeah.
BMW had it for a while.
BMW had cars there.
Did a lot to clean up. We couldn't believe, because it didn't look like it was packed with anything. We went through 6 40-yard containers, just compacting them in with, just where did it all come from? Before we started,
you took the whole roof off and reframed the whole roof too,
we had to. There was,
huh? Rotted out?
but we kept the whole original design. I mean, what we're doing there. If you see the elevations, it's such a great look for the village. It's bringing back what it was. I mean, I remember Glennon when I was a kid. They had the car that turned on the carousel out front, you know? I wish we could do something like that again out there.
Are you, yeah, I'd like to see the elevations. Are you, they have the garage doors across the front? Are you sort of
We're
keeping that?
keeping all the
look?
garage doors in the front. We're keeping it, it's supposed to look like a fixed-up retro, you know, service station. Trying to make it look like it was something built in the mid-'50s, a little modernized design. And when people pass by, they're like, wow, I never realized that was there. Not, look at the new thing. And we're not going with the shaker-style roofs. It's not going to look like a house that turned commercial. It's going to look like a beautiful commercial facility.
I mean, I see a lot of parking on the site plan, and you did all types of parking calculations to determine what?
Yeah, we did.
There's 112 spaces, I think, right?
Right, and I think our requirement is somewhere in the mid to high 80s. So we have more parking than,
You have 20-some-odd spaces over what the...
correct.
But that was the existing, we stayed with the existing parking. That was that.
What type of restaurant supposed to be?
That hasn't, we haven't gotten that far in this yet. It'll be leased to somebody in that business.
No, I didn't know if it was, they said 50 seat, but I didn't know if it was more of a takeout sort of place or a fine dining.
It's going to be a sit-down. That we anticipate, but we got to figure out who we're going to lease it to and who will operate it.
Open a good incubator, somebody, with a great concept and idea. Look, there's in the few months we've been set up, a few good businesses have popped out of us already. And it's amazing how many people are giving up their commute to the city and staying here again. And the great thing is a couple of kids, born and raised here, went to the city to pursue their career, and now they're back here full-time because of what we're doing. iCamp started from it, tow taxi. Can't remember Mickey's deal with the time shifter. He's doing a whole jet lag thing. He actually worked with the Olympics team this winter. Some good things. Something great is going to get born on that property.
Anything else? Mark, you got anything?
Oh, I'm good for now.
Well,
Really, I just want to thank you on behalf of the board for the effort to coordinate this with the planning board concurrently with this. So we'll be working with you on that from the planning board and Kathy's office. I would ask you guys to take a really good look at this site plan. I briefly reviewed it today and note the first thing that sort of jumped out at me was that it does not show the zoning line demarcation on the west property line, which is going to involve transition yard issues.
Actually, there's a lot between us and John Rose's office, where I think White Oak Builders is, and the zoning line is to the west of that.
Well, I saw the zoning line at 410 feet. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong map, and the property line on the south here is
I'll check it, but
409.94.
we'll check it, but I
Yeah.
believe that
Okay, well, yeah, we will, but, and I didn't see any, for instance, any off truck loading spaces on the survey calculation, so if they could really just check that, that'll just expedite it in the long
right,
run.
we put it in the preliminary site plan.
Understand, yeah, we thank you again
to see
for
if we're
that.
done.
Have you had the fire marshal review these plans?
Not yet. Not yet. They're not in shape. Yeah, we will, certainly.
So you prefer October?
Yes.
You're
is there
making,
anyone from the public who would like to be heard of this application? No. Therefore, I move we accept their request to adjourn to October.
approve the request. Approve the request?
Approve the request to
October, regular
To
meeting in
October.
October.
25th.
have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, board members. You're in good company. You're in good company.
That one?
Are we doing 1323? I'm confused.
Which one are we doing now, 3003?
Item number 3003, Madison Avenue Capital Partners, Inc., 1323 Meadow Lane.
evening.
Maybe you better use the microphone. Maybe use the microphone and make Charlie happy. Oh, we can hear her there? Okay.
As long as they're in front of the table or the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bailey Larkin with Bennett and Reed for the applicant. We had previously been here and presented an application for a wetlands special permit for a new construction home. It's a redevelopment of the site. We're proposing construction of a new residence, pool, and terrace on the north side of Meadow Lane. We're requesting a wetlands special permit for construction of the residence, pool, terrace, and of course the sanitary system. And also a front yard setback variance to propose construction of the house 60 feet from Meadow Lane, which is actually what the Meadow Lane Overlay District recommendations recommend to allow for a greater separation from structures to wetlands. When we filed this application, we actually became aware that we also had to notice for sky plane relief. So we have noticed for front yard sky plane relief, and the sky plane relief that's requested is the, I guess it's been about 2 years since that code section was enacted for elevated structures in flood areas. We submitted with our application a couple of different sky plane diagrams. The house is compliant with respect to side yard sky plane. It's only a request for relief from the front yard sky plane. The sky plane for elevated structures begins 40 feet into the lot, and we're proposing to construct the house at a 60-foot setback, which is why the relief is requested. On page V1 of the most recent plans that we've submitted,
Can you tell us the date of those?
Sure. They are dated July 10th.
The one here from the 17th.
Oh, those are the landscape plans? I
Okay.
think there should be an additional set from the architect. They're prepared by McDonough and Conroy. I think I have an extra set if you need. The first diagram on the top of V1 shows the flood elevation sky plane requirement going 40 feet into the lot elevated to base flood elevation and extending at a 33-degree angle. The bottom of the page shows a diagram. It's basically the volumes of the home. When you add all of those volumes together, we're requesting a total relief of approximately 17,691 cubic feet of sky plane relief. What the architect did provide on here was an additional line. You'll see it's kind of clouded on the elevation at 31 degrees, just to give an idea of if you were standing at grade, what a compliant structure would be located at, which is a 31-degree angle. V2 shows compliance with the sky plane requirement for side yards, which is a 33-degree angle. It's a very wide lot, and the house is kind of centered on the property, so it's completely compliant with side yard sky plane requirements. V3 shows you the Meadow Lane Overlay District recommended sky plane. In the recommendations, they recommend a sky plane that's at a 25-degree angle starting from the road elevation. So if you were to, obviously they're not enacted in the code, but if you were to apply the Meadow Lane Overlay District recommended sky plane, the pyramid encroachment for this home would be a little over 3,600 cubic feet, which is significantly less than what the code now is enacted. What I tried to do, I know John had mentioned at the previous hearings, is that the other homes on the north side of Meadow Lane were constructed prior to the enactment of this provision. Our position is that those homes would most likely have a very similar pyramid encroachment to what this proposed house has. So we tried to quantify that as best we could. What I'm handing up is an aerial photograph of all of the homes that have been developed between Road D and this residence.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Is there another copy, Jim?
We're lots 18 and 19. Yep, we're lots 18 and 19. This is actually, this property is 2 lots. One is completely vacant and will remain vacant.
Bailey, the lot number is what, tax map number?
Tax map numbers, correct. So starting, the second page then attached to it is a chart that shows each of the lots. Ours is the property in red. And I sat with Bob Smith at Swires and Holden, and he's actually, all of the attachments include them, prepared pyramid diagrams using the elevations for the homes that we foiled through the building department and the front yard setback from the surveys that are on file with the village. He was able to calculate out with us the height at which the sky plane would hit each of these residences. So for example, at 1401 Meadow Lane, which is on the corner of Road D and Meadow, the sky plane, as currently enacted, would hit the structure at approximately 22.5 feet, elevation 22.5. The height of the structure itself is 38, and the portion of the structure within the sky plane would be any portion of that structure at that starting point. So it would be 15.5 feet of that structure at that point would be within the sky plane. So if you kind of look down, I'm not going to go through every one of them, obviously, to ours, we're proposing our residence at a maximum elevation of 39. And the sky plane hits at approximately 22. Approximately 17 feet of that front elevation is within that sky plane, which is fairly comparable with all of the other homes that are on the north side of Meadow Lane. So submit that the request for the pyramid encroachment here is, it would be consistent with what's in the neighborhood in this area. I also have,
Bailey, did you provide us with a tax map just to illustrate where these lots are?
I have the individual surveys attached to each of these.
Maybe you could just submit a tax map
Copy of the
just
tax map?
identifying where
Sure.
they are so we can see it visually or an aerial photo, whichever is easiest.
Okay.
And so when you researched the records, the village records, though, you found no other cases
No, all of these,
been granted variances for the sky plane in this area?
not on the north side of Meadow, no, because they were all constructed prior to the enactment. However, on the south side of Meadow, on the corner of Road D, 1400 Meadow, which is currently under construction right now, was granted relief from the sky plane requirements. It's a corner lot, and in that instance, they had to comply with front yard sky plane from the north and also from the west. And they were granted relief of 44,360 cubic feet of pyramid relief to construct that residence. And I think part of the reasoning behind it was that it was a corner lot. Obviously, this is a waterfront lot, so we're trying to locate the house farther south on the property to increase our wetland setback, which I think is
Also because it's next to the parking lot. That came into consideration.
correct. Correct. So we had received a memo from Mr. Voorhees, and I believe we submitted a response in early July with addressing all of his comments. I don't know if he's had any additional comments or if there's questions from the board on this application.
Bailey, remind me, in your submission, was there any kind of analysis of what the whether the existing house complies to the current sky plane requirements or not?
The existing house does actually comply. We don't have an analysis of it, but the project architect looked at it. The house is located all the way back on the lot. I think it's only 12 feet from wetlands, but it's significantly farther north on the property than the proposed residence, so it would comply with the front yard setback.
So we're moving the house how much closer to the street and away from the wetlands?
Got my chart. Yeah, the existing house is at 8 feet, and we're proposing the house at 50, so it's 42 feet farther from wetlands than the
I just want to make sure the board understands where that existing house is and the balancing that you're doing here, protecting wetlands versus the pure.
Done that before, let it get a little nearer the street in order to save the wetlands more. 50 feet is not a great deal, though.
We are also, we did submit with the revised submission a chart that was prepared by Rob Herman also. It was a comparison chart giving all of the details on the increase in setback from wetlands. There's a reduction in lot coverage that's proposed with this application as well. So the existing house has about 12.9% of the upland area coverage, and we're reducing it to 11.8%, so there is a reduction in coverage on the property as well. We did revise at the request of the board the planting plan, and there was originally a red fescue lawn proposed on the north side of the house. That's been eliminated, and it's now a proposed native buffer on the entire north side of the residence as well.
We've done these on the north side, and one of the things with these new septic systems, we have to contain it within masonry walls, and then the front masonry wall gets pushed way up close to Meadow Lane, and then there was a height. Some of them got pretty high, and they're not really attractive. So on other ones, we've made sure there was always enough room to do a planting in front of the wall. So do we have elevations of that?
Should be included in the Aries plans here. They actually are proposing to plant holly and crepe myrtle along the entire property line in front of the retaining wall that would house the septic system. So there would be evergreen plantings along the front property line in front of that retaining wall.
And how tall is that wall going to be?
I think it's 3 to 4 feet.
I didn't know how high up you had to be to, meet the health department requirements for the septic system.
Yeah.
Probably a foot off. Can you plant those on top of that?
I believe it's 3 to 4 feet in elevation, but I have to confirm it for you.
So Dan, I don't know, to answer your question, L501, see that? Actually, the hollies appear to be either north of the wall, not street side of the wall, or, so, I don't know, Bill, you might want to check into
One
that.
of the problems, on the application, the wall was so close to Meadow Lane that they were actually digging on village property to put the wall in, and it didn't leave any room for planting. So I guess
This wall appears to be
I
a
don't have
couple
much of a
feet,
blow-up of
but
that
there
area.
isn't-
Yeah, it's close to the property line. So.
The wall would have to be how far back from the street?
I don't think there's any requirement, but, I think that, they could have it right up to the property line, but that wouldn't leave any room for planting, and they would have to dig on village property to construct the wall.
Yeah, This one shows 2, on the survey it shows 1. So L501, it looks like there's 2 walls there. But if you look at the survey, it appears to be only 1.
You looking at this survey, the small?
Yeah.
I know, but if you look at the landscape plan, which is L501, which I looked at to see how they address the issue of planting in front of that wall, there appears to be a wall there, and then parallel to that, encompassing the septic system, appears to be a different wall.
That curved one may or may not be a wall.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
It's not clear.
Okay.
No, I think those circles, are they on top of the wall? Those bushes?
And sprinklers.
Yeah, that's irrigation.
Irrigation system. Okay.
So it's the board's desire to see a revised landscape plan, or at least a blow-up, to show that that wall, if there is a wall of any height other than a couple of foot or so, I would think, but if it exceeds that, you want to see something that would provide screening of that wall
Yeah, maybe they could blow
within
that
the
all up.
property line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the elevations of the wall, top and bottom of the wall.
And how are they going to finish the wall? Is it going to be a stucco wall or a
Okay.
painted wall? Is it going to be a wood wall? Is it masonry, I assume? I think that's what they want. But, so it'd probably be a poured wall with the type of finish, like a tan stucco, whatever it's going to be, because you probably, even if you plant in front of it, it's still going to be,
Visible.
yeah.
You okay with that? So we had heard most of the case with respect to the wetlands permit at previous hearings, and really just back for Sky Plane. As Bailey said, we had provided some memos and received some information. I think maybe just for the record, to refresh the board's memory, in the Aris design package set, I thought L202 really shows effectively what the changes are. That shows the outline of the existing house in a red dashed line to the northeast. And to the northwest, that other red dashed line is the outline of the pool. So the property already has a driveway, septic system, which is shown in red in the middle, the existing house, and a pool. All of that is being set back substantially. As Bailey said, there is a table that quantifies that, which we would reference in any decision that the board would make. And we also have the installation of an innovative alternative sanitary system. So the sanitary system is being set back even farther, and it also is reducing nitrogen. The drainage characteristics of the site will be improved. There are dry wells that are just north of the house, but they're in an area that are already occupied by structure. So at least at the time that we had heard this in the first case, the environmental benefits were fairly substantial. Dan went to the heart of just that one issue that we've addressed before. I think if you check some records, the house just to the west of Road D, they may have allowed some landscaping within the right-of-way, but I'd want to check that. And there's also a very important factor, and that is drainage on the north side of Meadow Lane. We've always been very concerned about maintaining a swale there so that it'll capture some of the runoff from the crown of Meadow Lane to the north without it going toward the wetlands. So I would not encourage any landscaping.
Could that also cause puddling back onto the road?
Well, there's an existing swale there.
Okay, but I mean, if they do the work, is there still going to be an existing swale?
Well, that's what I want to make sure. That's why I would discourage any work within the right-of-way, because there is a low point. You can see it adjacent to the driveway, and that's going to help to retain some runoff in that area. So I thought that the comments regarding the retaining wall were very important, but we don't want to see work outside of the property line in this case.
On this plan, they also show in the front yard this general storage area?
That's for construction.
That's just for
During
construction?
construction, yeah. And we
There's
also,
actually a fairly detailed construction management plan in the Aris design package. L202 was one of them. There was also a demolition plan which has erosion control and all of the things that we do typically look for. So from that standpoint, I found the package to be quite complete.
We did at your request also, it's included in the general construction notes on L202. We provided on-site parking for the contractors during construction, but there's a note specifically stating that the general contractor shall provide off-site parking for any additional vehicles, because I know you're concerned about parking on the shoulder of Meadow Lane. So it is included in the specific notes that Aries prepared.
I mean, I just know that during construction, you can have 15 vehicles real easy on the site, so.
Especially this section of Meadow, because there's the two houses on the south side that are currently under construction right across the way. I was down there posting the sign actually for the property, and it's crowded.
The house in the corner is just about done, I believe.
What's that?
The house in the corner is just about done.
It is just about done.
It's up for sale already. 45 or 50 million.
Reasonable.
Paid 14 for it. Throw it down.
So I have no further comments other than what was discussed, and just wanted to refresh your memory about the environmental benefits that we had identified previously.
Is there anything else, Wayne?
No, but I would just ask Bailey if how long do you think you'll need to get some of the revised information back to us? If it's fairly short and we had it before the work session, I think we have everything else as far as the sky plane. I'm satisfied. I think Chick has had this for a long time. As far as all the rest of the wetland elements, we could have it ready for a decision at the next meeting if we get that other, assuming there's no other issues that arise during this meeting.
Right, you had requested just a copy of the tax map designating all of the lot numbers on the Meadow Lane north side where I put the plans in, the height of the retaining wall, confirmation as to whether or not there was a secondary retaining wall on that detail, the material of the retaining wall, and whether or not there were any plantings in front of it on the south side.
Do we set
And a recommendation that
do we set a bond on this?
We would on this one, yes.
I should probably have everything to within, I would say, a week to 2 weeks.
So I think
work
Chick
session is
also
the
asked for a
18th.
cross-section of that wall.
Okay,
We'll have it in by the 18th is the work session.
definitely. We will.
So we've got 3.5 to 4 weeks. Is there anything else? Anyone from the public like to hear of this application? No, therefore I guess we're going to adjourn it for our purposes.
So move.
Later?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right?
Yeah, I got plenty of room.
Lisa's not here.
Oh, yeah.
2004.
On the application, case number 3004, William and Laura McClanahan, 131 Lee Avenue.
For the applicant.
Good evening. My name is John Sprague. I work for Lisa Zaloga, and she's asked me to come down here this evening and present this application. As you may recall, this is a request to place a garage, a one-story high garage in a front yard. So we require, initially we thought we were going to require two variances, one for the distance setback and one just to place the garage in the front yard. At the last meeting, the board suggested that it might be possible to move the garage closer to the house, and we contacted our client. They were agreeable, and we pushed the garage back 100, or to the mark of 100 foot from Lee Avenue. That now requires only one variance because we're actually getting to the setback. Just to refresh you a bit, the application is being generated by the fact that it's a non-conforming narrow lot with a house that has been placed on an angle. This results in a problem when you try to place a garage that is not connected to the house. You can't do it on either side, and the only real place we can get it is in the front. The house itself is also, unfortunately, designed in such a way that the sleeping quarters all face Lee Avenue. And as a result of that, it's impossible to put an attached garage on the back because you can't get through the sleeping quarters to get to the garage itself. At the last meeting, there were several requests from the board. One was to, I think, from the attorney who asked if there were any other applications or zoning variances that were granted. Mrs. Zaloga did submit to you two that were similar. Both involved front yard variances in the area, and both involved, or one at least involved a garage. I believe the other involved a pool. And there was also some issue as to the house actually having to get the setbacks changed. But these are all variances that were requested in the past. There was also a concern by the board that we were going to possibly get into a situation where we were going to be too close to the septic system. We have submitted a second survey, and you can see on the second survey that the location of the house, or the garage, has been moved, and the septic system is actually dotted here, and it does not conflict. So we're sort of home free on that problem. That's my presentation. If you have any questions.
So the garage is still in the front yard, but not the required front yard.
That's right.
Do you have updated surveys showing what?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Part of your,
It should be in the package. It's in there. I'm not sure I can get it to you, though.
Oh, okay. I didn't look into the package.
so John, on the east side of the building, it shows on the survey a window well, wall around AC units, and what is that, a stairway? East side of the house?
No, actually, I believe that's a storage, outdoor storage area. Wait.
That doesn't go down to the basement?
No, what do you mean?
No, I'm not talking about the garage, I'm talking about the east side of the house.
Oh, the house, excuse me. I am not actually able to answer that question. I'm sorry. Mr. Logo would have to. It looks to me like it's an entrance going down to a well. Yes, you're correct.
So part of your
It does
argument is
say-
also that access would be very difficult also, given the floor plan and those kind of facilities to
I
connect the
can't-
garage to the house.
I can't. I could if I took it out, but that's not.
Does anybody have a floor plan of the garage?
We do have a floor plan of the garage.
But I didn't remember seeing that. I know John has one. Was that submitted? Could I see that? I just don't remember.
That hasn't changed though, right?
No.
Oh, this
You have
was
it in
part
an
of your-
original package. Are they going to commit to the two vehicles that you have listed here?
I think that was part of the requirements.
They have to have a Suburban and a Range Rover.
You okay with this, Chick?
Or front
Yeah.
porch?
There's no wetlands jurisdiction, right? No change, everything's back.
Doesn't it go to Hetty Creek, this property?
It does, yeah. So we have the 125, 150, and 200-foot setbacks. 200 only applies to a sanitary system, so it looks as though all is out of jurisdiction.
I mean,
Is there anyone from the public who wants to be heard to this application? No? Okay.
Does the workshop
This
bathroom...
bathroom going to tie into the house septic system?
Same accessory?
I'm not sure what you're looking at, sir.
No sleeping, no
Garage floor plan.
no sleeping, no cooking.
Oh, now you're ahead of me. I don't have an answer for you on that,
You
sir.
can have this back, John.
I can
So they're
answer.
going to have to do a separate septic system?
I don't think it would be.
Well, why can't they tie into the...
Well, maybe they can, but I mean,
But the half bathroom, there's a shower in it too.
well, one of the things that happens is if they're adding a full bathroom and it makes the more bathrooms, then you might have to upgrade a septic system.
That'll be up to the health department.
But I don't know if they went to the health. Do you go to the health department for this?
I don't believe so yet, but we would have to if the village requires.
Well, we don't know how many bathrooms there are in the house to then to determine if this should go back.
Not the number of bathrooms.
The number of
It's the number of bedrooms that dictate
The number,
the
yeah.
size of the septic system.
Right, but what they'll
and
do is they can look at a plan like this, where there's a workshop with a closet and a bathroom, and they'll say it's a bedroom.
Well, the health department, that could be an
So-
issue for them.
Yeah.
You know, the question is whether the health department will allow connection to the existing system. Probably depends on what the existing system is and its capacity.
That's what I'd like to know.
I'll have to get it for you, sir.
If that's the case, Wayne, should we leave this
I
open?
guess the question is whether it has a bathroom or not. It's not going to change the nature of the variance. The question is, can you put a garage with or without a bathroom in the front yard here? And whether the bathroom is going to be allowed is going to be up to the building inspector with whatever the health department requirements are. So whether they can or can is going to be at their jeopardy. But the question is, you can still, would we still allow a garage in this location?
Well, the other question is, they've labeled it a storage room, but it's a room with a closet and a bathroom, which is a bedroom. It could be interpreted either way.
Well, you clearly can condition this that it can't be used for anything other than storage.
Or
That'll be up
workroom.
again to the health department, whether they will require an upgrade of the septic system, because it's shown as space.
So from our point of view, we can close this then for decision.
Yes. And my recommendation is we could acknowledge that, that issue and that it is subject to the health department approval. Review and determination if they need approval.
All okay with that?
Yeah.
I'll move we close this for decision in September.
Was there any other public comment?
I already
Did you
asked.
Oh,
There
good.
was none.
I'm asleep.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
You're doing a good job.
Thanks, boss.
That brings us up to case number 3006, Carolyn Welch, 340 Hill Street.
Okay, I had submitted some new plans that the architect had done. He had corrected some of the errors that were on the first one. And I had
Could you
submitted
just
some...
identify yourself for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol Welch, 340 Hill Street.
We do have a letter from across the street, Donna Cerruti. She says the house is well maintained, and I appreciate the reps in that regard, but I hope an alternative solution could be found to this variance. It's basically,
I don't know who that is.
there's number 335.
330,
It'd be directly across the street from you.
oh, okay.
She even states that she resides directly across the street. So, vote on July 30th.
So, Mrs. Welsh, can you describe the plans and what else you've submitted to the record?
Well, you had wanted to see, this is the zoning dimensional requirements. They had wanted to see a picture of what portion of the garage would be.
Yeah, can you rotate it, please?
Oh, sorry. I have a problem, a spatial problem. Okay.
Just have it face the board. There you go.
Okay. Sorry. So this was the portion that is over the setback, but I think he also, on one of the pages, he showed where my, when I first built the carport, when we did the house 11 years ago, the setback was 12 feet. Then it was increased to 12 and a half feet, and then it was increased to the 15 feet. So he showed kind of where the line was from the outside of my carport. So this is the section that's technically over, and it was 892 square feet, cubic feet. That was in the pyramid plane on the top because it's 2 stories. I think that was really what you wanted to see was, the shaded area of what was over the setback.
So it's that slice coming right down.
And actually, I have the same problem as another house. The house is kind of at an angle, so the front is further over than the back because of the angle of the house. It doesn't come in straight. The other thing that you had all spoken about was what was going to happen to the rest of my driveway. I've been looking at this and looking at this. When the landscapers come in, I still have 2 gates here that I have to keep open and cannot block because that is my access to the backyard. The other side, there is a gate, but there was existing landscaping that I've never touched. That's always been there. And they cannot get into that side of the house with the drive-in mowers. So my intention is to continue to keep this gate here where the fence was. Well, actually, it's in the back. This is not the right view. But to keep that gate there so they can still drive their mowers in. So I'm still going to have an area of asphalt going down the driveway. And I have no way to really change that. The most I can do would be to put a gate. I have 2 columns in the front of the house, and I could put a gate that would block the view of the driveway totally. You'd still see my pavers in the front. You have a picture that are beyond the front of the, it's actually the town's property where the driveway comes out before the street. But short of that, I still need this access into the yard. It's always concerned me that because I have a pool back there and a pool house, and my septic is back there, that I don't ever cut off my access.
Where's your septic again?
My septic is in the back, just beyond the fence.
What fence?
I don't,
To the backyard.
You haven't updated or revised the survey, so we're looking at the same survey.
same survey, there was nothing to change on the survey.
It doesn't show the septic. So
No,
I'm
but
just
you have the
wondering
pictures on the plan.
If you could
Oh, this one?
point out to the board on the table where the
I
septic
have
is.
I have the original, I'm pretty sure I have the original survey in here. the survey, basically, where this, where my screened-in porch is, where it says slate patio, the septic starts on the side of that.
Just hold on a second, because we're looking at, okay.
Okay. This is a slate patio that I now have a screened-in porch over, but just right here is where my septic is, and then it goes out into the backyard, and that was all brand new when the house was built. We had whatever other one was there was prior to when they had records, so, but that was where the town required that I put the septic. It wasn't in the front of the house. They wanted it in the back.
And how does it get serviced now?
A guy pulls in to my driveway on the side of the carport, and he puts his hose back in there, which is right here, is where he accesses it.
Okay, so then once you build your garage, how would that be serviced?
He still should have, he's going to have room to come up to at least this point, and then his hose is just going to have to go back if he can't get next to the garage. I mean, they usually have pretty long hoses to get in, but again, it's a double wide gate. I don't think his truck could get in there, but it still allows the landscapers access with the double wide gate to drive their mowers in. And if I had a small piece of equipment, I could still get it into the yard.
So what's the volume of pyramid relief you need?
892.35 cubic feet.
Very small compared to the one we heard before, which is what, 17,000 cubic feet?
No, but I'm just remembering also, so you provided us with some photographs. Can you walk us through those?
Yeah, they were just, it was because the letter had said that
You'd put them on there and then maybe describe them to the board.
It shows the house next door, right?
one of them shows the house next door.
The other
You
one
could lay
shows
them
the
out on
front
the
parking
table
area.
so they can get a picture.
That's the house next, I don't know where I'm looking.
You just look at the photo and
Okay.
point to it.
This is the house next door to me. This is my fence.
Where is that photo taken from?
I'm standing under my carport. And then this is the front of my, this is the front of my house right here, and this is my parking area, which that original letter that was sent in the first time I came, he said he saw too much asphalt. I mean, I have a considerable amount. The whole parking pad is all pavers. And then...
It was inlaid.
And then this is the portion that's actually the town property. It's kind of the end of my driveway, just before I pull into the street. I have pavers there. And I didn't show the pavers under the carport, because that's all it might end up being gone. But there is a strip, clearly there is a strip that runs along the carport that is just asphalt.
And will that remain after you build the garage?
Yes, because again, that's how the landscapers drive. Well, I mean, I guess there's no way to really have grass anywhere there. But again, none of this changed from when I bought the house. The house, the driveway, everything was exactly where it is now. The only thing that we had done is along the fence, I had removed an entire, the entire length was privet, but the problem is the way the sun came, the privet grew into the driveway. And if people were parking, you'd scratch your car up. So I figured the fence was a better alternative on the side.
I have no further questions.
Anybody from the public like to be heard of this application? No. Will we close this for decision? I move we close this application for decision in September.
Second.
All in favor?
Ma'am, can I just have my
Oh,
documents back? Whatever.
this will be yours.
Photographs and the survey.
That's his. That means- Thank you. Thank you.
Any other papers? I think I'm confused from the last one. I think it's the last one that we're doing now. Yeah.
And you go up the green block.
No, I don't know.
On the application, case number 3008, the green block, 2015 Trust 1990 Meadow Lane.
In writing, you have to say it on the record. Really? Okay. Because we went over that.
There is a section that says to
Can you
close.
send me then what you were going to send us something, like who it gets addressed to?
Bailey Larkin with Bennett and Reed, offices at 212 Windmill Lane in Southampton for the applicant. We were here several months ago for a wetland special permit and variances for redevelopment of this property. The property is located on the south side of Meadow Lane, way far down, Meadow Lane. It has wetlands on the northern portion of the property, and we had obtained variances for construction of the new home, proposed pool house, and there's a pool also. Oh, here's the pool. And then we had also obtained variances for dune crest setback relief. This application relates solely to this northern portion of the property where they're proposing to remove some invasives and then revegetate the area that's within that wetlands area. I'm going to leave it to people who know more about this plan to talk about it. Mike Chiano is here with InterScience, and John Hamilton with LaGuardia Design.
Bailey, before you go, I didn't see a copy of our previous decision.
I have copies if you need.
Just want to make sure
More up there.
the board all had it, so that
Yeah.
someone's going to explain differences or changes from that.
Yep.
That decision dated April 27th, 2017?
February 22nd, 2018.
18. We'll read one more. Yeah, did the house first.
It's not talking about the existing stuff first.
Right.
One from you.
Hello, everyone. John Hamilton with LaGuardia Design. I'm the landscape architect on the project. So I'm just going to introduce you to the existing conditions out there. Everything in this application has to do with the wetland buffer between the approved house and Meadow Lane, which is to the north of the approved house. So out there currently, as you can see on sheet L1.1, we have some imagery of the existing conditions along the lower right side here. Most of it is comprised of invasive species, honeysuckle, knotweed, lots of Phragmites, so many undesirable plants and shrubs that shouldn't be in this area are currently inhabiting it. So there are, however, within this some existing stands of native shrubs, which we're going to keep all of that. Everything is going to be by hand and very sensitive to the plants that we want to keep on the property, and that should be there. So This sheet basically shows the areas of knotweed, honeysuckle, and in the lower areas of the buffer, Phragmites dominate the space. So that's pretty much the existing conditions. Mike Shiano is going to discuss the removals plan for this.
Thanks. Mike Shiano with InterScience. On knowing that Phragmites management is kind of, our office has had a lot of applications for Phragmites management recently, not necessarily in the village, but around on the east end, and different municipalities focus on different methods or different heights that you should cut Phragmites to, and so in order to get some idea of what the village consultant may want to do, may recommend, I met with Chick on June 28th to discuss some methods that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation recommends, some applications that he, in his capacity as a consultant, has also used, and some methods that our office has used to try and come to an idea of what would be best for this site. And what we've focused on is a management plan that will involve, the narrative that we have calls it hand cutting, but it uses hand pruners and hedge trimmers, but also it will include some hand machinery, like a weed whackers with an 8-inch blade on it to get at some of the more dense vegetation. And if there's, for some of, like there are some dead black pines, we'll use chainsaws and stuff like that for that. But the important thing is that when the work is done to cut it, none of the root systems or the actual ground surface will be disturbed as part of this. It'll be cut to a, if this is approved, our plan would be to have the first cut done in November of this year, and all of the thatch that is gathered in the areas of the Phragmites and all of the debris from the cutting would be removed from the area and removed off-site, and with the intent of exposing the soil. And the reason for that would be so that any seed stock that may be there in the spring would have a chance to germinate and kind of help the process of holding back Phragmites as this maintenance program goes forward. So after the first cut in November, the second cut would happen in late February, early March, and after that cut, which would actually include all of the non-native species in the area, we would start implementing the planting plan that LaGuardia Design has come up with. To add native species back to this area. All of the new species would be pocket planted in, so we would still have areas of the non-natives with the root systems in place, so that it's holding all of that material in so that it doesn't run off while in a rain event or anything like that. But during the spring of 2019, that planting would begin, and we would probably continue that through the planting season of spring, filling up probably about half of the buffer area. Because house construction activities are still going to be going on during that time, and probably won't be completed until fall of 2019, the plantings would cease until fall of 2019, when the rest of the plantings are that were approved around the house and in this area would also be done. So all of that would be finished later on. But during the rest of the year, there would be 2 additional cuts that we would propose in summertime, in June and in August, of the 2 hand cuttings of the Phragmites and of the non-natives to a close proximity to grade, so that the plants that we had installed in the spring would have a chance to establish and develop over time, and that hopefully they would also start to shade out some of the Phragmites and non-native vegetation that exists. And after the 2 cuts in summer, there would be another cut around the either late September, early October, at which point the rest of the plantings would be installed, and around the same time as the house construction activities would cease. And I'll leave it to John in a second to talk about some of the plants that he's putting in. But from that point, once the house and all of the plantings are completed, we would also propose to continue the cuttings based on some recommendations that we've had from the DEC for other projects for a period of up to 3 years, to try and continue to maintain the height of the Phragmites so that all of the native plants that we've installed continue to grow and help to shade out all of the knotweed and the Phragmites and everything that is invasive there, so that those invasive plants do not spread out into the other areas. Annually, in the management narrative, which I go into a lot more detail about because we know that this is wetlands are a sensitive area. I want to make sure that if this is approved, that it's very clear what we would propose to do, what tools would be used, what areas would be cleared and what areas would be planted. After, on an annual basis, during the after the cuts, we would, someone would evaluate someone who on the job would evaluate how well it's working and whether it has to continue, with the intent that hopefully the areas of Phragmites and other invasive species would reduce by 50 to 90% over that period of time. So once that happens, then we would stop. With the hope that all of the plants that were installed were then successful in keeping the Phragmites from growing anymore.
Michael, before you leave.
Yeah.
So just tell me, there was 2 prior wetland permits. What's different? What's happening here that's different with what we authorized before? No, there's different phases here, so I just want us all to understand what.
The very first wetlands permit that was issued for this project was for a completely different design for this house.
So that's the April 27th, 2017.
Correct. We came back in February. The property owner had hired a different architect, so we came back to this board asking for a modification of the prior approval to show basically it was a different footprint for the home. We maintained the same setbacks from wetlands and dune crest setbacks, but the design was completely different. So this is an application modifying that February approval, but not really. Do you have the plan showing your inner science plan? It's probably clear it's not on a survey, but on the inter science plan that we had used at the prior hearings. We did not propose any work within this area of the property on our prior application. All of the work that was approved.
What is that area?
It's actually going to be a wetlands buffer area. And you can actually see his dotted line here. This is the area that they're working in now. looking in this buffer area. All the prior work was actually located in this section.
So that's the February 2018 was
Correct.
for everything else. So
Everything
now
else.
this is solely about revegetation in the buffer area.
Correct.
There was, within this black dotted line, there was some work done to remove the driveway and to revegetate that area and to reduce the amount of lawn and other area, non-native vegetation that was actually in this area. But other than that, the focus of this was to bring all of the structures further away from the wetlands.
Right. And I
So
think
that house redevelopment is under construction at the moment?
it is currently. And I think part of our application had actually been to establish this retaining wall here because originally there was a more extensive landscape swale, kind of like the existing driveway. We pulled everything back so that this project had netted out with respect to fill. Whatever we're removing from site is being maintained on the property, which was a concern of the board, bringing no fill into this project at all. So that retaining wall is essentially where we were stopping our work, the revegetation work, and then establishing that wall. This is solely relating to the front buffer area, this application.
Thank you.
So for the proposed plantings, which is sheet L 1.3, we'll keep it really simple. You know, what's there now is invasive, non-native, vigorous plants that are going to be hand removed. Our goal is to put back native plants that will attract wildlife, help with stormwater runoff, and put this area back to what a native wetland buffer should look like. So all of the plants we're using are, tried and proven in nearby areas in Meadow Lane. We've used them with success many times, just down the road. So everything that's shown here, that's a mix of shrubs and perennials, and we are taking into account that within this buffer there are two kind of microclimates going on. There's a lower area that holds water occasionally and is constantly wet. So there's going to be a certain plant palette for that area that will do well. And then another area within the buffer closer to the house is more of an upland condition, drier soil conditions in that. So a different plant palette will be used there. But that's the proposed revegetation.
I would just like to add one thing. Dan Thorpe, landscape architect with LaGuardia Design. I think we have a rare opportunity here to make a serious environmental impact, just given the square footage and acreage of this space that our client is willing to make a significant financial investment in revegetating and repairing what's there now. It's a situation of malnourishment for Shinnecock Bay, and this is really going to do wonders for reestablishing the habitat and wildlife that was original to the area. So that's all.
I have just one question.
Yeah.
With all the new planting, you told me how you're going to mitigate the Phragmites, there was knotweed, poison ivy, everything that's mixed in there by cutting, periodic cutting to keep that low, and then putting in new plants, which then establish, which can shade that area out. And then you mentioned that it's 50 to 90% effective of sort of blocking the Phragmites from reestablishing themselves. Yeah. Have you had that rate of success in other projects?
It's something that's being employed by East Hampton Village around Georgica Pond, where they have a serious issue with Phragmites. It's this idea of recolonization over a period of years. It doesn't happen in one season.
Right, I'm just saying that it is successful.
It is, yeah. And
in some of the projects that we've worked on, the clients weren't willing to necessarily add so many new plants, and it was still successful because if you continually cut at a certain height, and it's labor intensive because you have to watch what you're cutting and know that the people that are doing the cutting need to know what they're looking for. But even if you were to just not install the new plants, it has been successful, where the native plants are growing up over the Phragmites, but in this case, because we're installing so many new native plants to help the matter, we're
It just seems like there's so much Phragmites around that it sort of overpowers the native species rather than the native species overpowering. So what you're doing is you're trying to reverse the trend. You're trying to get the native species to overpower the Phragmites, and you feel that this was successful.
Especially considering this is like an isolated pocket. That's a low area, isolated from Shinnecock Bay by Meadow Lane. And so we're essentially zeroing in on the Phragmite. It's not a contiguous band of Phragmite like along Georgia Pond where it's just coming from all angles. We have the opportunity here to hone in and hopefully wipe it out.
And it is a very unique opportunity, like Mike and Dan both said, in that this application isn't just for cutting, not just a maintenance plan, it's a cutting with a proposed planting plan of a serious quantity that they're going to put back in there. So I think the combination is a really good effort.
Question?
Could you kind of take us back in time? Because I was under the impression that when you showed this plan, that part of the basis for the original permit was bringing the driveway back and restoring natural area throughout this area.
It is
And
for that one section.
that's not shown on it's not shown on the landscape plan.
That's a separate revegetation plan from the initial application.
So we were, because this is a separate application, we're still proposing to do that. That's still completely part of the other application. We wanted to focus on this, so we should have opened with that, apologize. But this is, all of the native vegetation that we're proposing to do as part of that application is still going to happen. The focus of this application is essentially, and I do describe it in depth in the narrative, is north of what was
the old driveway.
The old driveway, the limit of disturbance.
Right.
Which kind of follows these retaining walls that were here. This driveway has actually been removed at this point. But it's everything that's north of that limit of disturbance to the street.
So how does that dovetail with the other plans?
Continuation of the same palette of plant material, but obviously as you get further upland, you need to...
It changes.
It changes. But
we're still within the
it seems-
125-foot landscape setback, so I just want to make sure that everything kind of coordinates.
Most of the plants in that area, Chick, are of that upland nature, which is going to continue into portions of this buffer, along with that lower area that's in there.
Do you have the original plan that was approved for that area?
I don't think that we have it with us, but we could. So if you would like us to submit a plan that shows both of them together, so that you see what this will look like at the end of the day, like after everything is completed, all the revegetation is done, we can submit that.
In my mind, that would help.
Right.
Absolutely. And identify, as you described in your management plan, how each component is going to be completed. Timing, I'm assuming when you get a CO, all that is going to be finished.
Yes.
And then the red stipple area is basically the planting palette, but the red stipple area, you're managing Phragmites in those areas. And there's a note, remove existing invasive shrubs, vines, replace with native plantings.
Check what sheet is that?
I am looking at, it's L1.3.
Okay, just making sure.
And yeah, it's the same as that one. So the red stipple area, I didn't see a specific note as far as how that would be managed. Yeah, exactly. So this area that's within the wetland buffer
Within the actual wetland
within the
line.
wetlands itself, that's right. And has existing Phragmites. What's the program for that area?
I believe that there's parts of the Phragmites area, part of the wetlands area, that are lower in elevation, some that are higher. So as they go through and identify, because right now it's difficult to get through and find out exactly what those areas are. We know that that's what they are, but because the Phragmites are so dense, it's hard to identify exactly where each of these are going to go. But after the Phragmites are removed, we'll be able to more specifically identify, based on this note here, what will be going in that location.
So the reason I asked the question is because the other areas, it looks as though you have a specific density proposed. In other words, I guess it's a greenish hexagon. You're proposing panicum at 12 to 18 inches on center. So should there be a corresponding density in the area that's actual wetlands where you're removing invasives and trying to shift the habitat?
It's tough to peg down exactly what's in there and needs to be replaced. It's right now along Meadow Lane in front of this property is a privet hedge.
I know.
So you got to battle through the privet and then get it. It's just.
And I'll just say that that's the actual wetlands, and it's fairly unusual. I mean, I don't object to this. It's fairly unusual to see the actual wetlands being managed. Usually we're looking at a buffer.
Right.
So I would just say that if you're giving that level of treatment to the buffer area, I'd want to really have some good certainty that we're going to have a good density of plantings.
For each of the plants that we identify in this description here, you'd want to have the densities and the sizing of plants that would be installed.
I would, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I said, it's the actual.
It's understood.
Of course, I just wanted
It's the actual
to
wetlands.
confirm exactly what it was, which completely makes sense.
I think it's understood that if there's existing wetland species, you're leaving those, and it's just in those areas where you're taking the
they
invasives out,
specify.
you need to know what you're putting in and what density and so on.
And then I'll give credit to Wayne for asking, at least for an explanation, the tupelo tree. Is that, I mean, I don't see it typically represented along Meadow Lane. It's in many other areas. It's typically freshwater wetland. Is that something you're confident will do well, or?
Well, that's what the Phragmites is there because there's fresher water.
It is, but it's also subject to salt spray and, occasional overwash.
You like the
And
Tupelo?
I love Tupelo. It's one of my favorites.
I don't think, just show us some other ones along Meadow Lane. I just don't see them on Meadow Lane. I mean, you go in the backwaters, bays, and they're all over the place, but certainly, I don't know, the sandy salt environment really work. I don't know. That's.
I mean, we can look at that further, but I just, as the landscape architect, I wanted to hear your rationale and if there's
We love the
possibly
Tupelo.
another species that,
But we have had success with it in these very boggy, brackish areas. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's worth it. It's something else. It floats away.
well, I also like the idea of getting some tree cover because I think that'll help with Phragmites management.
Yeah, we discussed that. Yeah.
Get more canopy in there to help with that.
So maybe just a little more justification that will do well in that environment, or if there's a substitute, I think
But even the
we're
back-
willing to give it a try because I'm sure you'll have a survival rate and it'll have to be demonstrated to be successful.
But even that Baccharis is going to get 15, 20, 15
Yes.
feet tall. It becomes
Yes.
tree-like.
And there's quite a bit of existing backers, so we know that
In there,
works.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was all I had.
Thanks, Rick.
Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to refer to this application? No? Do you have anything else to ask right now? We're all set? Wayne?
No, this is really, I had my one question.
It was a good one.
But I
I saw
think
a lot of Tupelo this week, as a matter of fact.
Therefore, I move that the August 2018 meeting of the South Haven Village Zoning Board of Appeals be closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
well, before you didn't close this.
Gotta adjourn the last.
Oh, what are we doing with this last?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Very good idea. We're going to adjourn for all purposes.
So you can get
Something
revised.
back for the next work session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Little reversal there.
Yeah.
Thank you.